Okay, Darren, first of all, then, let's start with injury news. How are the squad looking for the weekend?
I don't think we've got any new injuries actually. No, I think we came out of Saturday with a clean bill of health. Um, some of them have obviously had a little bit longer to train again. We're building Alex Bradley up quite slowly, quite methodically, because he's had a reoccurrence too often for our liking. So we've been quite tame with him. Reece Murphy's obviously had a full week, unlike last week. And yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, and it is one of those, another one of those back-to-back games as well, isn't it, against Solihull? So Saturday, Tuesday against the same opposition. It's happened, of course, before these days, isn't it, with a lot of postponements for COVID and so on. So, I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, you said before that it doesn't really matter to you, just approach it as any other game.
Yeah, the first one you do obviously, and then you try and use the first one retrospectively as to how you can be better. I thought we did that better against Notts County. In the second game we were much better, but you only work. It's a weird one. You only seem to work that hard when you've been beaten the first one. I hope that comes across right. But you try and find another way if you get beaten the first one. And when it came to the Notts County game, we obviously served up a better performance from learning from that first game. So it's just those things really. But at this time of the season, it's all it becomes really difficult because motivation levels differ from club to club, from position to position, wherever they are in the table. So yeah, it's just how you find the individual group of players that you're playing against on the day.
Yeah, and you say that it's more for the second game. You've got a little bit more fresh info. So does it make any difference then? Would you rather be playing at home first or away from home first if you're playing a team back to back?
Nah, I don't think that matters. I'd like to be home just because I'd like both of them to be home because there's no. I was watching the tributes to Glenn Roeder the other day, and there's a lovely video where he says about Newcastle. If he could play when he was Newcastle manager, if he could play 38 games at St James's Park, it's the best place to play football, and he'd take that. And it's a little bit. It kind of triggers where how I feel about Hewish Park, in that if I could play all 38 games here, I would, because it's a brilliant place to play your football. It's even better, obviously, when supporters are in. But either or, we'd always rather play at home. It's a good place for us. We've got a very good record here, especially in 2021, and we're in good form here. But no, it's a really nice pitch at Solihull. It does allow you to play. It does allow you to pass. It's not like you're turning up and playing on a car park. It'd be a good surface for us.
Yeah, and what do you expect from them? What sort of a game are you expecting?
Well, they've had a really good run of form of late with Mark, and they've kind of found themselves under his guidance. And Mark's a tough campaigner, and someone I've come up against a couple of times in my career, and his teams are always very resilient, always very strong, and they're all tough. But like I said, at this time of year, it's all about how you come up against that group of players on the day, because we all know what mid-table obscurity is like at this time of year. Sometimes motivation kind of lessens in a way, but we'll be highly motivated. We're still obviously on the crest of a very high wave of emotion, and we'll be going out to do our absolute best.
Yeah, you mentioned Mark Giggs there. It's quite an unusual sort of situation, isn't it, from his point of view, being from Stourhead, but taking on this role with the season suspended for Stourhead. So
Stourbridge,
rather. Yeah. Have you come across seen anything like this before in football?
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He was at Mulder when he went to Man United.
Yeah.
Look, I think it's really clever from Solihull. They wanted someone till the end of the season. I'm only saying what I've read in the press when Mark joined, but they wanted someone to the end of the season. They've rented, I guess, a very experienced Football League manager, a really experienced campaigner, someone that can, command a dressing room and drive a dressing room. So I think it's quite innovative, really, from Solihull, and it'll be interesting to see if that catches on a little bit more often. But Mark knows that club really well. He knows the people at the club really well. It was a good fit.
Yeah, and looking at the table, 10 points off the playoffs now. I know the games are running out, but there's still enough time, of course. So presume that remains the target, doesn't it, to try and get in the playoffs?
Nah, our target's to get through today's training session. That's our target. We haven't moved on that far ahead yet. So we'll get through today and then start. So this is the thing, when you play that first game, the assumption is that everyone's all right. Oh, they're all right. They're playing again, but we all know that the smallest part of the iceberg is always on top of the surface, not under it. So we got to take it day by day still.
Yeah, well, we wish you the very best of luck with it, Darren. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Hi, Darren.
Hi,
How you
mate.
doing?
Yeah, not bad. You?
Yeah, not too bad. Judging by your comments there, I mean, as you say, there was bits under the iceberg on the top, but do you sort of ever get the feeling that, will you ever get over this? Is it one of those things that's going to just linger and linger and linger, or is it a question of determination that you've got to get over it somehow and life's got to go on?
I think it's both. I think the resilience, you can only develop resilience in people through adversity. And when they decide to, like they did Saturday, the players, to get back out there and play the game, that increases and enhances their resilience as a character, without a shadow of a doubt. It's the most difficult game I've ever done. So I'm sure that will add resilience to my character as well. But it will certainly add another line on my head, that's for sure. But I think I'll never get over this. This will be with me for the rest of my life. It will be with Lee's family. It will be with Lee's teammates. It will be with us all, and it would have left a quite sizable dent, I would have thought, in our souls for a fair few years to come. But I'll never get over this. But what I will do is I'll become stronger, because I've made a choice that I'm going to carry on working. And when I'm working, I'm where I was closest to Lee. So that always brings this scenario or this moment very much back to the surface. So it's I think it's both in terms of your question.
Looking at the league table, Dan sort of mentioned promotion to the playoffs and what have you, but you said, well, it's one game at a time and you just can't look any further than that. But look at the number of games in hand that you've got on most of the teams above you. It's not such a wild dream to think that you could get up there.
It's not one game at a time, mate. It's one day. It is one day. Again, we're making an assumption now already that we're going to play the rest of the season because we played one game, and I know how natural that is to make that assumption, but it's not natural to feel like that when you're in our four walls. So it's one day at a time, one step at a time, and try and get through to the next day. But it's still very, very tough. It's still very raw. It's still very much on the surface of our thinking, our emotions, and I'm more concerned of ensuring my players, my staff, the people that work behind the scenes at the club are, progressively moving forward psychologically. That's the win for me at the moment. The win for me at the moment is all of our health and our psychological state, because just because we've gone down the tunnel once, it's certainly not disappeared from mind. That's for sure.
Do you detect any small improvement in that sort of aspect of it?
Well, I think like some of the questions have been, you do start to have lighter moments, and I think when you look at the stages of grief, you know, we all do them in different orders and we all do them in different time spans, but you know, I always try and notice the people that are at the celebration part of Lee's life when they start to talk about how funny and charismatic he was, how tough he was. Do you remember that at half time? Do you remember that at full time? Do you remember that on the staff? Oh, sorry, on the Christmas do? You know, all of those things that make people smile about the person he was and the things he did. You know, so when certain people get to that stage, that's a nice thing. It's nice for them to be able to move through the stages of mourning to, you know, how great a guy he was and how great a footballer he was.
Changing the subject slightly, the big story of the week obviously has been this European Super League. What do you think about all that?
Well, what I think of that is we play in the English Premier League. We play, you know, all of the club's supporters are English. None of the owners are English apart from Daniel Levy. Why would they think the way we think? They don't live in England. They don't get fan revolt. They don't get fan. You know, they probably don't look at social media because, you know, they're highly successful businessmen. They wouldn't think like that. And the fact that they don't think like that, to me, is damning on them being owners of these great institutions of English football. And they're so adrift from the fella who drives the van and delivers people shopping online. Why would they think that the European Super League would be such a big problem? I know, you know, it's an awful thing they've done, absolutely awful. But they're so adrift of what English football is because they've not grown up with English football. If I'd have grown up in a country that celebrates the World Series only in their country, I don't really know, you know, to call something the World Series but it only be in America. Not the world, is it?
Well, it's not just that, was it? I mean, how can you play football, any sport, and no relegation?
But that's how they play it.
It was the most stunning part of it.
Yeah, no, but that's how they. Oh, it's absolutely bonkers, and they don't realise how close they came to destroying English football. And I'm sure this conversation is going on in the lower echelons of Italian football and Spanish football. They've got no idea. They've got no idea what it means for someone to, when you see supporters that travel all over the world, or even at Yeovil, you know, for us, they travel all over the country. They wait for players and staff to get off the bus just to say good luck. They have no idea what that feels like for that individual. That is their week, that's their life, that's their month. That's what they work for, that's what they spend all their money on. And then to say, yeah, you're not going to do that anymore, or we're not going to allow you to do that anymore. Who the hell do these people think they are? Would they walk into the pub closest to the ground and suggest what they suggested from behind their TV screens? Not a chance in hell. Not a chance in hell. So.
Well, it's just interesting that most of the American owners, anyway, are obviously not based in this country anyway, and they've been speculating as to whether they're going to come, for example, the Glazers to Leeds on Sunday. Well, I shouldn't think they'll be there. I mean, they would have huge egos if they had enough nerve to go to Leeds on Sunday after all this.
But I think they have to. I think they've got to front it up, Aid. I think they've got to stand there and take it. I think they've got to stand there. I'll have more respect for them if they stood there and took it. Said, listen, I've had an absolute, I've had a disaster. Suggesting this, taking my institute, my organisation through this. But I'm standing here man to man just to say to you, this will never happen again on my watch. This is, you know, this is your club, and I always knew that. I'd have more respect for them, but if they hide over, you know, across the way, then I know what I call those types of people.
Trouble is, though, some of the comments that have been made since then, you know, even since they said, no, right, we've made a mistake, we're not going to push to this, but they still give the impression that maybe if they can come up with some other sort of daft scheme, they're going to put it forward, and that makes you think they haven't learned a lesson from it.
No, they won't. No, they're too rich and wealthy to worry about the consequences. All them videos, do you think they mean them? Yeah, good one. the Liverpool owner with his video. He don't mean that. Why would he? If he meant it, he wouldn't have done it, would he?
No, exactly.
So it's Gary Neville was brilliant, as was Jamie Carragher, and they spoke so passionately about probably what we was all thinking, and then the Chelsea fans turning up, socially distanced, of course, showed the power of of people like you and I, and that's what we got to do. We got to make sure we drive. English people should be driving the standards of English football, because it's our culture. It's not their culture. If they want to play World Series in one country, play World Series in one country. You want to build hotels all around the world, build hotels. But when it comes to English football, it's English football. And I could never go and be an owner of an Italian club and fully appreciate the culture of Italian football. I'm not Italian. I might not get it, I might not understand it, I might not want to get it or understand it. But it's their culture. It's their culture, and it's something that should stay very firmly in those countries. So we all feel really passionate about it. It's been lost a little bit on me, but because obviously I've had a couple more pressing things, but we were very close to losing it all, and the common good came together and saved it, which was brilliant to see the power and people unite in the face of that. Would you call it tyranny? I don't know. Something like that.
Darren, thank you very much for your time, sir. Have a good weekend. Look for the 3 points, and I hope things continue to improve, albeit slightly.
Top man, thanks, Ed. Thank you.
Hi Darren, how are you?
Yeah, all right, Paul. You?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. I just touched on the nonsense proposal we had this week. I think the good thing that came out of it was how much the fans still are behind their clubs and how much power they hold, and it just made me think, how special is it going to be whenever it happens, the first game they're back at Hewish Park?
Look, it's one of the only things I have that I hold on to. We've not had a great time the whole season. Obviously the last 3 weeks have been horrendous beyond belief, and one of the only kind of perks is knowing that we're closer rather than further away from having our supporters back, and attributing Lee's football life and life properly with them. That's one of the only moments that helps get me through my day, probably the players' day, definitely Terry's, that's for sure, because we obviously speak very often and very openly, but I really want to give the supporters their chance to pay tribute to Lee. I really want to get a chance to pay tribute to our supporters for their support, not only for Lee, but for the season, and their steadfast support of me and the players, and all the tribulations, all the COVID breaks, all the financial reckonings, and everything. So they deserve to be attributed as well. As well as the other way around, but one of that moment for me will hold a lifetime significance, an absolute lifetime significance. So it's one of the only things that helps spike you to get you through your day,